Think you already know Henry VIII, the guy with 6 unfortunate wives and a church he created just so he could dump them? Think again. Because the Henry VIII was far more disturbing than anything your school ever taught you. This wasn't just a dramatic king. This was a man whose body and behavior were so shocking that even Game of Thrones feels tame in comparison. We're talking about a monarch so monstrously overweight he needed custom-built machinery to hoist him around. A man whose leg wounds festered with such a nauseating stench that servants literally fled the room gagging. A king whose corpse decomposed so violently that his coffin actually burst open from the gases building inside. And that's just the beginning. From his unhinged eating habits, to the paranoid security routines he forced onto everyone around him, to the way he treated his wives that went far beyond beheading. The truth of Henry VIII makes his reputation look almost polite. His body was a medical catastrophe. Let's start with the most jaw-dropping fact. By the final years of his life, Henry VIII wasn't just unhealthy. He was basically a rotting body held together by royal clothing. His waist ballooned to 54 inches, larger than the height of many people. He tipped the scales at nearly 400 pounds in a time when the average man barely reached half that. And yet, the most horrifying detail wasn't his size, it was what his body was doing to him. It wasn't just that Henry VIII was obese, his entire lower body was a medical nightmare. His legs were riddled with gaping, infected sores that never closed. These weren't minor injuries. They were enormous ulcers that constantly leaked pus and decaying flesh. The stench was legendary. Courtiers would approach the king with perfumed cloths pressed to their noses just to survive the encounter. Some records claim you could smell Henry from multiple rooms away. It got so bad that palace servants literally drew straws to decide who had to dress him, because tending to those suppurating wounds was considered the worst job in England. But brace yourself, it gets even darker. Modern historians believe Henry VIII suffered a catastrophic brain injury during a jousting accident in 1536. This wasn't a mild concussion. He was knocked unconscious for 2 hours, which in the 1500s basically meant he had 1 foot in the grave. After this incident, Henry's personality flipped like a switch, from energetic young ruler to paranoid, violent tyrant. Sudden rages, extreme mood swings, impulsive cruelty, all classic signs of severe traumatic brain damage. And that's still not the whole story. Experts also suspect Henry suffered from Cushing's syndrome, a hormonal disorder that would explain his ballooning weight, unpredictable fits of anger, and those monstrous ulcers that refused to heal. His doctors, terrified of being accused of treason, never dared tell him the truth, pointing out the king's failing health was as dangerous as plotting a rebellion. By the end of his life, the man who claimed he was chosen by God couldn't even control his own bowels. Attendants had to follow him everywhere with special padded chairs because he couldn't walk across a room without risking an accident. This is the same king who executed people for blinking at him the wrong way. Everyone knows Henry VIII had 6 wives and chopped off the heads of 2 of them, but the real story is far, far uglier. These women didn't just face execution, they endured psychological torment worthy of a horror film. Take Anne Boleyn. Henry didn't just decide to get rid of Anne Boleyn, he engineered one of the most twisted frame jobs in royal history. He had her personal musician tortured until the poor man confessed to sleeping with her. And then Henry escalated it further, dragging Anne's own brother into the accusations. But here's the part that truly reveals Henry's monstrous cruelty. He forced Anne to watch as 5 innocent men, including her brother, were publicly executed for crimes she and everyone else knew were impossible. She stood there knowing she was next, forced to witness the deaths of men condemned solely to justify her husband's paranoia. Catherine Howard's fate was just as horrific, maybe worse. She was basically a teenager when Henry married her. And when he learned about her earlier relationships, he didn't just have her executed. He rewrote the entire legal system out of pure spite. Henry literally passed a law saying it was treason to marry the king without confessing your full sexual history. Imagine being so vindictive that you change national law because your teenage wife wasn't a virgin. And the psychological torture? That was Henry's specialty. He'd alternate between drowning his wives in gifts and affection, then suddenly freezing them out, threatening them, or accusing them of treason. Catherine of Aragon spent her final years isolated under what amounted to royal house arrest, forbidden from seeing her daughter Mary. Henry spread rumors that she'd gone mad, while she died alone, possibly poisoned, writing desperate letters that he never even bothered to open. Here's something even darker. Henry made his wives sign documents agreeing to their own annulments. Anne of Cleves was so terrified of him that she practically sprinted to sign her annulment papers just to stay alive, pretending the marriage never existed and thanking him for not killing her. And Jane Seymour, the one wife Henry supposedly loved? She only survived because she died first. She passed away from childbirth complications, and Henry started scouting for his next bride 9 days after her funeral. Not even 2 weeks. He treated his wives like disposable furniture. The worst part? These women had no escape. Divorce wasn't realistic. Running meant execution. And resisting Henry didn't just endanger them, it threatened their entire families. If you think competitive eaters today are impressive, wait until you hear about Henry VIII's daily menu. This man didn't eat like a king. He ate like he was actively trying to drain the kingdom's food supply. Henry swallowed an estimated 5,000 calories a day. For reference, that's more than double what a physically active man should eat. And Henry VIII was about as far from physically active as a human could get. By his later years, just standing up was a full-body workout. But the amount wasn't even the craziest part. It was what he ate and how he ate it. A standard Henry VIII meal looked like this. An entire roasted pig, multiple whole chickens, several varieties of fish, loaves and loaves of bread, and enough wine to hydrate a Viking army. His kitchens prepared more than 800 dishes a day for the royal household, with Henry personally sampling dozens of them. Over 200 kitchen workers toiled non-stop just to keep up with the king's bottomless appetite. But here's where things veer straight into absurdity. Henry firmly believed food had magical abilities. He thought eating swan would make him more elegant. He believed piles of venison would somehow improve his hunting skills. And he was absolutely convinced oysters would boost his marital performance. So he didn't just enjoy these foods. He inhaled them in absurd quantities, like a medieval influencer obsessed with superfoods. And then there were his eating rituals. Every bite that entered Henry VIII's mouth had to be tested first. Not by one servant, but by several, each taking turns eating his food to check for poison. But Henry's paranoia went far beyond that. He forced his tasters to wait 30 minutes after sampling his meal before he'd even consider touching it, just in case someone had slipped in a slow-acting toxin. Imagine eating lunch, and then sitting there silently waiting to see if the taste tester collapses. This was normal at Henry's table. And yes, his meals were full-blown performances. Henry didn't dine in private. Oh no. He ate in front of hundreds of courtiers, and the entire ritual could drag on for 4 hours, while everyone watched this enormous, half-rotting king shovel down enough food to supply a village. People stood there pretending this grotesque spectacle was just ordinary royal etiquette. Here's a detail you were definitely not told in school. Henry VIII banned certain foods at his court, not because they were bad for him, but because he believed they were peasant food. Turnips? Absolutely not. Ironically, these unworthy foods were probably the only things that could have saved his health. Instead, he kept devouring mountains of sugar, meat, and rich pastries, convinced his royal blood protected him from consequences. Spoiler, it didn't. Henry VIII's paranoia wasn't your average, I don't trust people. It was full-blown, empire-wide madness that turned his court into a dystopian surveillance state. By the end of his life, Henry was so convinced assassins lurked around every corner that he turned daily existence into a nightmare for everyone within reach. Start with his sleeping habits. Henry slept with loaded crossbows propped beside his bed. He kept daggers hidden under his pillows. And he demanded that armed guards stand inside his bedchamber, watching him sleep all night long. Imagine being so terrified that you need witnesses just to close your eyes. His palaces became mazes of paranoia. He ordered secret escape tunnels built throughout every residence, not for romance or secrecy, but because he genuinely believed killers were coming for him at any moment. He had peepholes installed in walls so he could spy on courtiers. He placed early forms of listening devices in council rooms so he could eavesdrop on private conversations. But the craziest part? Henry VIII built an entire spy network whose only purpose was to spy on his other spies. Informants watching informants watching informants. No one knew who worked for whom. Every whisper, every casual joke, every complaint became a potential death sentence. Court life turned into a psychological torture chamber where even the smallest comment could be interpreted as treason. And treason meant execution. Henry's food paranoia spiraled into levels that bordered on insanity. It wasn't enough to have multiple food tasters. He demanded his meals be prepared in sealed, guarded kitchens, where soldiers stood watch over every ingredient. The salt was tested. The spices were tested. Even the water had to pass through several layers of inspection before it got anywhere near the king. Eating a meal for Henry wasn't nourishment. It was a full-scale military operation. And it gets worse. Henry was so distrustful he even suspected his own children of plotting to dethrone him. Princess Mary and Princess Elizabeth, literal children, were monitored by spies 24/7. Imagine being a teenager and having to worry that your father, the king, thinks you're running a coup. As his mental state deteriorated, Henry began ordering executions for crimes people hadn't even committed. If he dreamed someone betrayed him, they died. If someone whispered that a noble might be disloyal someday, off came their head. The Tower of London filled with people whose only crime was standing too close to Henry during one of his paranoid meltdowns. And here's the terrifying part. Henry's paranoia infected the entire court. Nobles spied on nobles. Servants snitched on their masters. Everyone was terrified of everyone else. A single wrong word could get you tortured, imprisoned, or executed in the name of the king's delusions. You'd think Henry VIII's reign of terror would finally end when he died. Absolutely not. He managed to cause destruction even as a corpse. In his final weeks, Henry was so enormous he couldn't move on his own. His servants had to haul him around using a custom-built chair with ropes, wheels, and pulleys. But the truly nauseating part, his infected leg wounds had deteriorated so badly that pieces of rotting flesh would fall off his body whenever they moved him. Servants had to trail behind him with cloths, literally wiping up chunks of the king as he went. His death scene could have been a horror movie. Henry's body had swollen to such monstrous proportions that his skin was stretched tight like overfilled sausage casing. The smell pouring off him was so overpowering that even his doctors, hardened veterans of medieval medicine, had to leave the room to vomit. When he finally died, no one wanted to get close enough to confirm it. But even that wasn't the worst part. Henry's corpse filled with so much decomposing gas that his coffin had to be reinforced with lead plates and packed inside multiple wooden layers. They thought it would hold, they were wrong. During the funeral procession to Windsor Castle, the coffin exploded. Literally. The gases inside built up so much pressure that the lead lining ruptured, spraying rotting king goo all over the interior of the hearse. The smell was so horrific the procession had to stop while servants scraped up what remained with buckets. And here's the image you'll never forget. Dogs were reportedly seen licking Henry VIII's liquefied remains as they seeped out onto the road. The king, who claimed divine authority, ended up as roadside dog food. Even his burial was a disaster. The grave had to be widened because his coffin was too massive. Then the ground kept caving in under the weight. It took multiple attempts just to force his remains into the earth and keep them there. For years afterward, people reported foul smells and strange noises coming from Henry's tomb. Some said it was his spirit. Historians believe it was probably just his body continuing to decompose explosively underground. Here's a detail no one mentions. Many of the servants who handled Henry's body died within weeks, likely from infections contracted from his decaying flesh. Even in death, the king was lethal. So there you have it, the real Henry VIII. Not the dramatic monarch of movies and textbooks, but a walking catastrophe, betrayed by his own body as viciously as he betrayed everyone else around him. A man so consumed by paranoia, gluttony, and delusion that he turned one of the most powerful kingdoms in Europe into a nightmarish circus. His true legacy isn't just 6 wives or the Church of England. It's a cautionary tale about how absolute power can twist a human being into something monstrous, something barely recognizable as human. If these disturbing royal realities made you rethink everything you thought you knew about history, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, this is only the beginning. You haven't heard anything yet.